much for holding on. And we now really officially start with our webinar, and we start with an introduction. I am Armin Ortmann, and I'm the CTO of LuraTech. I will host this webinar together with Helmut Schünemann, the head of the sales department. Helmut will do most of the presentation, and I will do the live software demonstration. Two more technical details. As you may have noticed, all the participants of the webinar are muted, but there is a dialog box to post questions during the webinar, and we will try to answer them as best as possible during the webinar, either by sending you an answer in this questions message box in private or in public, or by actively answering them in the aftermath of the presentation. Experience shows that we usually don't get to answer all the questions, but we promise that you will receive an answer by email as soon as possible, i.e. in the next 2 business days. And in case you have any other questions or something comes to mind later, of course, don't hesitate to contact us through one of the well-known support or information email addresses of LuraTech. Also, we do have a questionnaire at the end of the webinar, and we would ask you to be so kind to fill out this questionnaire to help us improve the webinars. Thank you very much. And now, Helmut, I would say we're ready to roll, right?
Hello, a very warm welcome from my side. My name is Helmut Schünemann. I'm the sales director of LuraTech, and I will guide you by using some slides to the software presentation. At first, I will start with a few words about Dockyard in total for those who join in for the first time to this webinar and haven't heard anything about Dockyard in the past. Dockyard is a production software for scan service providers, and therefore it integrates all process steps inside scan service bureaus to complete workflows. That means single tasks like paper preparation, goods receiving or scanning process or whatever are included in workflows so that we can track all the efforts which goes into these process steps. And by these we are able to report detailed how much effort was used for the paper preparation, for example, how much effort would be used for scanning process and so on, so that you can recalculate your job later compared to those numbers you have invoiced your customer, and so you will know, is this job profitable or not. Well, what we want to show today is the new features in the Dockyard versions 2.1 and 2.2. This means at first indexing, how to use index fields, how to create items and so on during the process. And we will show this in detailed way for the goods received client and the track and trace client, and also for the quality assurance client. And at the end we will show you 2 standard reports which we will put in to the system in the version 2.2. So let me start with the general workflow, as every scan service provider will have. Well, might slightly be changed a little bit in the schedule of all these process steps, or some steps are not in every job, whatever. What we want to say is all these steps are all scan service providers do these steps, and we have software components, we have modules for every of these steps. The workflow normally starts with incoming goods. So we have a goods received client where you can check in the material, and then it goes to manual paper preparation, scans, processes and whatever. And therefore we created a track and trace client so you can track the time and the staff who are working on this manual paper preparation and so on. And after the scan process, the system imports all the objects and files in the system, and there's normal processing like page processing, barcode reading, OCR or form recognition, classifying what kind of document do we have here, and also form recognition, reading information from the paper, and make a look up the database and something like this. For this, you have a correction client, which is a form validator, and after this correction, you will convert the files in the output format and will do a final quality assurance. For example, check completeness or whatever, and then export the data for your client. And at the end of the day, you would like to have reports that allows you to invoice your customer. And all these steps are covered by Dockyard modules. So let's start with indexing. How to create items and index fields. If you create a job, you are able to configure items for the job. For example, batch, folder, document, chapter in a document, or whatever. This are only examples. Maybe you don't have folders. Maybe you have only pure documents in a flat hierarchy or whatever. But you can create it as you need it. And per item, you can also create index fields. For example, spin labels per folder. You can define index fields for author, title, publisher, year of document, and so on. And you can define these index fields per job and per batch. And you can configure this per job based on what kind of index fields can be configured and how to handle it. We know different types of index fields, for example, text fields, numeric fields, Boolean fields, or whatever. You can select it from a list. We know wildcard patterns, regular expressions, and the values in the fields can combine with values in databases for lookup or for check. And you can also define a field as optional or as mandatory and define default values which will be put it in from the system automatically, so you can use it or override it. And if you have a short look on this screenshot on the map, you see, for example, in the last line there is a default value defined, which is 1970, which will cover most of the cases in this workflow. And you can also define a minimum value or a maximum value if you look at the middle of this screenshot. But we will see this in more detail later in the demonstration. Well, items which are configured for the job will be created by the modules, which means they will give them values. And all the index fields which are configured are accessible in every Dockyard module. Every Dockyard module can use the index fields, can put data in it, can do different things with these data. For example, checking the database, checking if this is a correct date or whatever. And you have the full hands on your operation. Batches and folders, on the other hand, are created via the track and trace client. We will see this a little bit later. This is more individual than the job, and this will be done by the track and trace client. But batch names and folder labels will be created in one and the same path. Okay, let us start with the goods received client. The goods received client is a client application which runs on the workstation, and this client application will connect to the Dockyard infrastructure. So the client has all information concerning the client and the job, and all the index fields and items and whatever. So the GOTS receive client is used for manual data capture, which means you can use a barcode scanner or you can do it by fingertip on the keyboard. And what you can do is at first record the initial reception of paper material, or if you have other materials, might be microfilms which have to be reconfigured and digitized. And you can also enter rough quantity values, for example, 1 pallet, 5 boxes, or 5,000 pages, or whatever. And you can use these values for doing a calculation against agreed service level agreements with your customer. And you can record the initial storage location for this material. And at least you can put data in for boxes, folders, etc. and enter all these data for the items. We see here a screenshot. We will come to this later. What you can see here is we are using index fields and we can put data in it. Armin will demonstrate this later, so we have more detailed view on this. Now we come to the track and trace client. It's also a client application which is running on a workstation. It also connects to the Dockyard infrastructure, and therefore the client knows all entered data which are entered and put it in with the goods received client. You can use the barcode scanner or the keyboard for fingertip to track manual tasks, for example, paper preparation or scanning. You can put in the information about the location of the paper material, where is it actually in this process step. You can create items for the job, so you can put in more detailed information about boxes, folders, batches, and so on, and enter the index data for these items. The quality assurance client is also a client application running on a workstation, and it's made for special tasks. At first, for inspecting documents to check if they are scanned in the correct way, is the schedule of pages in the right track in the document. You can split documents, you can join documents, you can rename documents, you can edit the index data for a document or for a job or for a batch. And so you have the full hands-on so far created index values for every entity in the job. Now we can start with the software demonstration, Armin, to make it more concrete and more plausible for the attendees. So I would like to hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Helmut. Oh yeah, now the image gets across. What we see here is the main window of the Dockyard cockpit, which is connected to the Dockyard installation in the background. And I will show a few things, or I will show most of the things we just mentioned, but I will not actually really process things in the workflow, as we determined that this would exceed the scope of this webinar. It would just basically take too much time to go through everything. So I'll merely just show you where everything is located in the GUI and give a few hints as to how to use the things. So first of all, we talked about system-wide template definitions of item types and index fields, and these are accessible provided you have the proper user rights, the user rights required in terms of the Dockyard user management. Then you can go to this dialog and you see this dialog has two tabs, one of which is concerned with the item types. So what I have here is a mere list or collection of possible item types. How these are really selected for a concrete job, I will demonstrate in a minute. Just so much to show here. You can always add another type, such as, I don't know, binder maybe, okay, and give it another ID. One more 0, I think they all have, okay. That would be just another one to use maybe for a concrete job. The idea, of course, behind this is that many times most of your jobs have a certain structure, and you keep reusing the same kinds of elements again and again, and just to keep you from having to enter everything separately from scratch or to copy one job to the next over and over again, we have these general system-wide template definitions. And the same applies to the index fields. You see here we have a few things prepared, a few things such as a creation date, a title, and an author for a document. I could just as easily add another thing such as, I don't know, maybe an ISDN number, okay, and that might be something that comes from a database or that can be validated against the database, okay, or maybe I'll just have a regular expression for it, or I'll just say, okay, it's a numeric value and I have certain borders, certain limitations for that value. All that is possible. Here you basically see the list of possible types that Helmut already mentioned. And of course, if you have one of the more elaborate types, such as a regular expression, well, you have to enter an expression. If you choose a database value, i.e. a value that should be populated from a database due to certain rules, then of course you have to enter a connection string and a query for the database. And the same applies to a validation, where the user merely types a value, but it has then to be validated against the database. Okay, I'll leave this for now and not create another dummy value here. I hope you understand. And we'll turn to the more concrete issue of the job. So you have a job, and under or among job properties, you find again the item hierarchy. And now you see this binder item type that I just created. I cannot really edit it here because it's a system-wide type, but I could select it for my concrete job. I won't do that for now, not to confuse things, but that's basically how it works. You have the templates up here, and then you have the settings for the job down here, but you can also enter something else here for the job, okay? So you can have specific values for a single job as opposed to the more general values that you keep reusing over and over again. Again, I'll just delete it again here. And once you have this hierarchy, please note that this is the hierarchy for this demo job, and we will get back to that in the remainder of this demonstration. You can then specify which level in the hierarchy actually represents the batch. So at which level an item would be treated as a single batch by Dockyard. And of course you can, if you start with the goods received client, you may start with something very coarse, such as 1 container of material or 6 Euro pallets of material. Nobody even bothers to count how many boxes there are or how many folders or even pages there are. That would be like the coarsest level of hierarchy. And then maybe in the next step, somebody goes and says, okay, I'll create or I'll count and process the boxes now from that container. And in this example, for example, we don't have the box as the batch item, but we have the folder as the equivalent of a batch. So every folder within a box would be processed as one batch. And I'm just mentioning all of this to to exaggerate that this is a very flexible system. So we don't impose some kind of superstructure where you have to adopt your existing processes to our structure as we devised it, but we are trying to implement a structure here that would fit most all possible and existing use cases that you would find in your organization. Okay. Getting back to the mere technicalities, you have these three levels of hierarchy now: boxes containing folders, in turn containing documents, and here finally are the index fields for these items. And again, you see the index fields we created on a global scale here, and I have author and title selected, and creation date I have not selected. If I select it, it appears down here and would also be among the ones specified for that job. So it's specified in the scope of the job, but the actual index date would be on the level of a document. Okay, that is important to notice. So here you have this scope where this index field is actually valid, and the level at which the index field can only be created, because if the folder label is an index field, you cannot create it when you're merely processing the box. On the other hand, you cannot yet say something about authors and documents. So the index fields are edited in the context of the concrete item they are assigned to. And to see how that works, I will now start a goods received client. It's down here. Yeah, there we go. And we do have this demo job here. What I have to do is I have to sign in for the work step goods received for that job. And I can then enter a location, maybe the gate, I don't know, the entrance room, whatever. And then I can start capturing boxes. So I might maybe say something like box 0001. Okay. If I type return now, that box has been checked in. It's been created. So now the system knows that there is an item, box 0001, pertaining to this job. And on the next hierarchy level, I can then create a folder. And again, here I see the index fields assigned on the folder level, which were folder, label, and publishing year. Let's compare. No, it was on the job level, sorry. Index fields. So for a folder, we have folder label and publishing year, and actually for the publishing year, we have certain restrictions. Let's see. If I say publishing year is the default 1970, well, I could say 1967, actually my birth year, but it wouldn't take it. And just as well, it wouldn't take 2021, whereas 2020, which is the specified maximum, would be okay. On the other hand, here there was no restriction, so I can type all kinds of messy German umlauts and it doesn't complain. Okay. And so I'm not really creating items to process here, but that's the general principle. I create folders. Once I have folders created, I can create documents within the folder, but I can also say complete or cancel and thereby move back again to the next higher level. So the current position in the hierarchy, which is kind of equivalent to a path within a file system, is shown up here. So we're at this box, at this folder, and that's where we're creating documents. And this would actually work in quite a similar fashion in the track and trace client. I would have to enter a location, and what I'm generally doing here, because I may be doing different things with this client in the course of my shift. And again, you have the same kind of hierarchy principle. This is not yet really connected to the running job, but once I had a job, I could type in box 001 here, and I would actually see the folders created for that box. And one thing that's worth mentioning, you are flexible in terms of where you create the sub-items. You can do everything in one pass in the goods received client. If you have small jobs consisting only of a handful of folders, you can create the whole item hierarchy directly in the goods received client. On the other hand, if you have big jobs with huge amounts of material and you have 2 or 3 or maybe 4 pre-processing steps where you say, okay, first we store the boxes, then somebody partitions that and opens the boxes and takes out the folder, and then finally somebody does the paper preparation and actually identifies the documents within each folder. Then you can easily model that as different steps and create the next sub-level of item hierarchy along with all the indexing data at different workstations, and you can all do that will still all be tracked within the system, and at every station you would be able to see and edit the things you did at the previous station. And that brings us to a point further down the pipeline, further advanced in the whole process, which is the quality assurance client. Again, the quality assurance client is connected to a certain step in a certain workflow. You see this down here, and in this example I do have a batch and it has this cryptical number USPTO and 0001, and it's actually consisting of 3 documents at this point. And as you can see, I can expand or collapse the 3 documents in here to see thumbnail previews. I can enlarge a thumbnail preview to have a look at the actually scanned image, and I see other information such as these deletion markers, because these pages have been run through a barcode recognition where it was specified that pages with certain barcodes are mere separator pages and now need to be removed. On the other hand, I can clear these deletion markers, or I can reapply them, or I can directly proceed and manually delete the page. Okay. Just as well, I can move pages around here. That even works in between documents, so I could actually fix the fact that documents have not been split correctly, or on the other hand, I could introduce a split or merge 2 documents. And while I'm doing that, again, for the item selected, I get a display down here. If there is index data pertaining to the item, I might say, then I get the index fields presented down here, and again I'm able to see what has been entered so far, and I can enter additional values, or I can edit and correct the existing values. Okay, so much for the quality assurance client. And of course, all of this editing, especially the manual steps, are an integral part of the Dockyard processing. So timing values and location values for documents and for manual tasks are captured in the Dockyard database, and that brings us to the point of report generation. That's again located here under tools, and it's again subject to the user rights management. So you can specify who may generate reports and who may get to see them. And if I click on this menu item, I get this report generation dialog, and here I have basically the same view as in the main view. I see clients and jobs, and I can select one or more jobs to report on. I'll take this one right now. We do have this quick selection where you can say, well, I'll basically have the last calendar month or the current calendar month. I'll have to pick something here to actually really get to the data we created. Okay, and if I click on this one, I'm getting the report. Please note that you can save the report as an HTML at present, or you can proceed and print it, which will bring up this printer dialog. But of course you wouldn't see much if I run it through the printer here. Anyway, and so this this report shows us the client, the job title, and the creator, which is myself right now, and the reporting period I just specified. And then you see that within this period, the job was active for 11 days and a bit, and you get an overview of all the entities processed. Actually, also down here, you get an overview of the errors incurred. And of course, we are working on extending and refining these reports and making them more dynamic. So in later stages, we'll be able to add and remove further columns and see more details. Helmut, anything I'm forgetting about this? Anything you might want to add?
No, thanks. It wasn't really complete. I want only to mention that this is the basis for you to recalculate your production so that you know in detail, did I earn or did I burn money with the job? And you can also use this tool for rapid prototyping if you have to create an offer for a customer to take in a new order. You can quickly set up a job with the testing material, the customer hand it over to you, let it run through the system, and you have indicators how to calculate the effort which has to be put into the job, so you can use this for pre-sales and for after-sales too.
Sorry. Okay, as you may have noticed, there is another flavor of these reports, and that is here on the second tab. And if you do have manually interactive tasks, you can also select individual staff members, employees, temporaries, whoever, and again can make a time span selection and generate quite a similar report. And again, you see the number of items processed, but also in addition here you see the actual net working time that the person has spent according to these start and finish buttons or start and finish actions in the track and trace client and quality assurance client. Sorry, I wanted to show you that. Here again, please start, pause, resume, or cancel and complete items, and that of course always each creates a timestamp that is recorded by the Dockyard system, and on the back-end side this can be queried from the database and collated into these kinds of reports. And of course we're also again working on a higher level of detail here as to more concretely tell you who did what at what point of time and which document was processed where and by whom. All this data is already recorded, and you can see, for example, for every job you can see an event history, and that can basically also be shown for every individual batch, and the information detail really goes down to the level of individual documents. You see my many attempts here to create valid data for the webinar, basically. Okay, so much for the presentation. We do have 2 questions by now, which, given the amount of time that we have left, I would, of course, like to answer. Helmut, anything you would like to mention?
Only a few comments on it. This staff report, is very important for those who use bonus systems for the salary of the staff. And on the other hand, at minimum you can see where are underperformers, how I have to train more or whatever. And at least one more general answer, there was one question concerning the recording of this webinar, to have a look at it later in a more quiet hour. Yes, you can do. We will send you the download link so you can have a look on this webinar later on. This was one of the questions here, and this is not a technical question, and so I'm happy that I can answer one question.
Okay, there was one question concerning that's actually a really good question. What happens if you change global items while a job is running? Does this disrupt the job? Is suddenly something changed inside the job? And the answer is no. Once you have actually made the transition here and set a job to ready, okay, then it's really ready for production. And at that point, the values that the job has here are frozen. You may notice that I cannot edit them anymore. So from that point on, which is a prerequisite for starting a job, this whole setup, this whole configuration remains immutable unless you explicitly reset the job, which implicitly deletes a lot of data and which kind of forces you to throw away what you have done so far. So this is really a point that in terms of consistency, of course, we cannot allow for half a job having the one index item and the other half of the job not having it. But this is really enforced at that point. And once I have released the job, it does not really matter what I do here, whether I delete an item here or not. That would only become effective if I reset the job to its pre-production state. And the other question concerned export formats of the reports. First of all, we allow for exporting the formats, the reports as HTML, which of course then can be imported into Microsoft Excel, for example, but we are also working on an export as comma-separated values, which of course is much more straightforward to export to Excel and also to other systems who can consume this simple kind of data storage or the simple kind of storage format. So yes, we are open to extending both the scope of the reports and the possible values to show there, as well as the export and storage formats. Okay, if we don't have any further questions, Helmut, anything you would like to add?
Well, let's return to the slides, at least to have a short conclusion about the reporting.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, reports shall help you to improve transparency in your production. And what we did put into the system are two different views. The first view is dedicated to your client or to a certain job, and this is a report which you can hand over to your accounting team that will invoice your customer, and also to give the information to the customer, have I been SLA compliant or not? And the other view is a staff report. You need information about the performance of your staff, and you need to compare this. You need to know where are weaknesses that have to be improved by special trainings or whatever. And I think most of you have bonus systems for your staff, and you can use these reports for calculating the salary based on this bonus system. So, well, this is a short summary about reports. I hope that you have enjoyed the information we handed over during the webinar, and therefore I would like to say many thanks for your kind attention, and hope to see you in the next webinar again. Thank you for joining in.
Yes, thanks from my part as well. Have a nice day.